once we can step back and realize that we're more than just our identity and our ego and who we think we are from a cognitive perspective, then it gives us a lot more empathy to be able to look at other people and say, everyone's just doing the best they can. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of ShiShi Meditations, coming at you from Los Angeles, California, where I'm currently at for work. So what I want to talk to you guys today about is something that I've been experiencing over the last few weeks. And basically for the past month or so, because of work, just being really busy with work, like my day job, and also being busy with music, and also some family stuff that I was dealing with, I haven't really been on my game, like just in general, like as somebody who generally tries to put a lot of effort into like going to the gym and working out, eating really healthy, being really conscious about, what I'm eating, and sort of keeping up with like my spiritual practices like meditation, and different things like that. Like taking cold showers in the morning, all these kind of like habits and just sort of self-development kind of hacks. As somebody who really tries to keep up with all that stuff and hold it in a balance, and is really dependent on, a few key things like eating healthy and working out and meditating to just kind of regulate my mood and keep me in an even keel and like able to be positive and happy as I go about my life. I've sort of, a lot of that stuff has sort of fallen by the wayside, and it's not like I've gone completely like off the rails or anything like that. Like I'm still meditating, and like my version of, because I'm like so freakishly like health conscious, like even my version of like eating unhealthy is probably not as bad as like it could be, but I definitely have felt it like in my body and in my mind, like just my mood has been down. I've had less energy. I've felt kind of more depressed. I've had less willpower. And the interesting thing about like habits, and bad habits, is that when you indulge yourself in bad habits and when you don't keep up with good habits, like the easiest decision to make is always the last decision you made in that situation. So it's kind of becomes like this downward spiral. In the same way that like good habits can become an upward spiral. Like if you go to the gym like 4 days in a row, the fifth day it's a lot easier to go than like if you hadn't gone those 4 days. So, I've noticed that, but another really interesting thing that I've noticed is that my inner critic, like that voice that we all have inside of our heads that is basically just constantly like shitting on us, telling us that like we're not good enough and that, we could be doing better and we're not living up to our potential. That inner judge, that self-doubt, self-critic, has really taken like main stage in my brain, like just because it has all this evidence based off of my behavior that I'm not, doing what I should be doing, or that I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing. And so because I'm playing out all this behavior, that critical part of me is like, oh, like it's like fuel for its fire. Like it's stoked. It just gets to boss me around. And so I've noticed, that voice in my head has really gotten a lot louder. And obviously, like the solution to all of this is very simple, and that's just to like start doing the good habits again consistently and not do the bad habits again consistently. Like going to bed too late, or like eating unhealthy foods, and like starting to go to the gym again. But simple things aren't always easy. Like it's a simple solution, but it's also not necessarily easy, especially when you have all this negative momentum. But more so than the solution to the problem, because I know what the solution is, what's more interesting to me is I had this thought like this weekend that, haven't really been at my best for the past few weeks. And I've had this like inner critic kind of talking to me in a very like mean way, essentially. And it kind of got me thinking, like, if I was my friend, like if I saw my friend, not keeping up with his or her good habits and like getting into shitty habits, like how would I talk to my friend? Would I talk to them the way that my inner critic is talking to me? or would I kind of come at it from more of a perspective of love and acceptance and just like, support? And I think it's a really interesting thought exercise to think about, like the way we talk to ourselves when we're not doing our best, when we're not living up to the expectation that we set for ourselves. Is that the way that we would talk to a friend who is going through the same kind of behavioral patterns or experiences? And I think it can be really enlightening to look at that and say, damn, like I'm really mean to myself. Like I'm just not kind to myself at all. When I go through these periods that every single human being goes through, it's like part of the human condition. Like nobody's perfect. Everyone goes through these sort of slumps of behavior. And for me, it's just like laziness. That's honestly all it is. It's just, you make that one bad decision, and then the easiest decision to make is always the last decision you made in that situation. So that's how you get into this like negative spiral of bad habits. And it just kind of, it got me thinking, and it kind of allowed me to open up some more space to give myself some love, and to just be a little kinder with myself, knowing that if that was a friend of mine that was going through the same thing, there's no way I would treat that person or talk to that person the way that I talk to myself in the same situation. And I think what's helped me realize that, apart from just the like thinking about it in the way that I kind of just explained it, is there's a form of meditation practice known as non-duality practice. So it comes from, there's multiple schools of it, but originally it comes from like the Hindu Advaita Vedanta practice of non-duality meditation. And then there's also like Tibetan schools of Mahayana and Mahamudra and Vajrayana. And then there's Japanese like Zen Buddhism. So essentially what it basically means is this idea that you are not actually separate from anybody else in the universe, and that we're all connected by this unifying thread of consciousness. And the way to sort of experientially prove that to yourself is by meditating and constantly observing all of the contents of your mind, so thoughts, feelings, sensations, whatever it might be, including, and this is the like important part, including the sensation of feeling like you are separate from someone else. So essentially, like you observe all of your thoughts, including the thought that you are somebody who's meditating right now, and that, you're over here and someone else is over there. And basically, like what this trains you to kind of see, and how this trains you to exist and live, is in this state of feeling as though the only thing that separates you from somebody else is the sense that you have a distinct identity and that you have a distinct personality that's separate from someone else. And on one level, that's true because we all are like separate individuals and beings. But essentially, if you can keep peeling back the layers of your identity, then you can start to observe that every thought you have is literally just a thought, including the thought that you are a separate person from someone else. And once you realize that all of those thoughts are happening in this space of awareness, the space of consciousness, which is essentially your ability to perceive things, including your thoughts, and that space is also shared by every other living thing. Every other thing that's conscious is also having thoughts swirling around in that same space. It can start to help you to break down the barriers between you and other people. And you start to essentially kind of look at the world and look at other people like basically you, but living a different life. Like they're just expressions of consciousness in the same way that you are, but they just happen to be in a different body and have a different name and have a different history and a different story that they tell themselves based off of their history, based off of their memory of who they think they are. And I know that got like a little woo-woo, but basically the reason I bring it up is this practice has really helped me to grow my empathy for other people. Because if you can really look at somebody else as essentially you just living in a different body, in a different life, but still made up of the same fundamental consciousness, that same ability to perceive, this world that we live in, then you start to empathize a lot more with their motivations and their beliefs and their mistakes that they make and the things that otherwise might offend you or you might disagree with. You're able to kind of look at with more perspective because you're stepping out of your own solipsistic viewpoint of who you think you are, and I'm this person and I have all these beliefs. And you're allowed to have beliefs, you're allowed to have an identity, but if you can separate yourself from that and realize that you're more than all of the things that you think you are, then you realize that whatever that external thing is that's able to observe that, every other person in the world also has that, and that's a shared space. So this has really helped me become just more empathetic with other people. And the reason I bring it up is because, like, I started this video talking about how, I haven't been really like at my best and haven't been, sort of living up to my own standards for myself. My goal is to essentially try to treat myself the same way that I would treat somebody else if I saw them struggling with the same issues. And I think if we can try to live our lives more from the viewpoint of, yes, like I am all these things, I have this identity, I have this personality, but my ability to perceive these things, whatever that ability is, that's greater than anything that I think I am. And if we can apply that to everybody else, then we see that, when somebody lashes out at us, or when someone cuts us off in traffic, or when somebody, makes a negative remark or whatever it might be, that's just them playing out their own story. That's just them reacting to their own unresolved shadow side that's inside of them and their own unresolved pain. And it doesn't actually have anything to do with us, even though to our egoic self at the time, in that moment, it feels like a personal attack. It feels like a personal slight. But the reality of the matter is that person is essentially just reacting to forces inside themselves. And I think once we can step back and realize that we're more than just our identity and our ego and who we think we are from a cognitive perspective, then it gives us a lot more empathy to be able to look at other people and say, everyone's just doing the best they can. So that's my video for today, and I hope it was helpful. And like I said, yeah, I haven't been on my A game, and one thing that happens to me that's really interesting, I'll just end it with this, is when I'm not eating well, when I'm not like on my nutrition like hustle properly, and I'm like eating too much like refined sugar or fried food or whatever, which I have been, I like don't think as clearly. And I actually noticed like in this video I kind of rambled and was like a little like ranty and incoherent, and that's like directly because of my nutrition, which is just like a really interesting side note. So anyway, I will talk to you guys soon, and peace out.